Motion to call the meeting to order.
Second.
So all in favor?
Aye.
So starting with the agenda, approving the minutes from our last meeting in June, which is when we finalized the recommendations for the rate increases. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Okay, then. Aye.
Yeah, approved.
You all made a motion.
Yeah.
Second.
Or someone else has to make.
Oh, I motion to approve the minutes from.
Sorry.
Second.
Okay, updates from Mike?
Right behind.
Yeah.
All right, so. We'll go through what's been done. This season and, first is South Street Water Main, that project's being, overseen by the engineering department. That's a new 16-inch water main. It's going up South Street. And it's going from, Charles River Street to Chestnut. That's the loop. For those who drive that way, you'll realize, sorry, I can't get there from here. So, they've got about half of that done, so about 2 miles worth of pipe. So, they'll come in next year and they'll finish that project up from where they left off at Morant and Bird Drive. On South Street and head up to Charles River Street. The pipe that's in the ground is now active and all connected to anything that's downstream of it. So, and then the upstream's still live, on the old main. Then, to move on to item 2, 128 I-95 sewer interceptor rehab. Again, another project being overseen by engineering, but obviously, under the auspices of Sewer and Drain here. So, they're continuing their lining. We hope that they'll be finished, by the end of December here, 2024. That's the work that's going on along I-95 corridor between Kendrick down towards, the next interchange, Valley Road area, down that way. So, and they're lining all that pipe down there to secure it because of the condition. And then eventually we'll be upgrading some of the pipe and doing a pipe jacking down there in the future on the next contract. So our town hired contractor, AD Paolini, they completed their water service renewal replacements this past construction season. They came in under budget for that. We had around $470,000 for the work that we did this past season with them. Got about 104 water services replaced. For those who aren't familiar, this is part of the lead copper rule revision that's come into play as of October 16th. Town's been proactive since before I was here in performing these water service replacements. We have 116 services left in town out of over 10,000 to do. So the 116 services we have left are a combination of known lead, unknowns, and galvanized that was downstream of the lead that we have to get out. So we're actually putting on another contract for this work. Soon as the end of December, and we'll start when construction season starts up again in April of 2025. We expect we'll probably get half of those done roughly this next construction season, and then finish up the following construction season in calendar year 2026.
Mike, how many pipes have been replaced in total since we started?
I had to go back, it was before I was here, so.
So it's every year, it's like 100.
It depends on what they're doing and what they're replacing, so. We're not replacing entire service lines, water service lines. Sometimes it's just main to property. And then other times it's main to house.
Mm.
And then other times it can be just curb stops at the property line to the house. So with the pieces, depends on what the material is, what the condition is, and what we have to do. One of the things that's been a saving grace in town is when you get all these tear downs, you know, new water services, so we don't have to do them. So, that's been something that we went through. It took us about 18 months, to get that, lead copper rule, form filled out. It's a lengthy spreadsheet with a lot of information on it, but now it's something that we have in hand. It's a living document, it's a fluid document. Joke there, but we'll go through that and make the changes we need, because you have to report on it every year till you got it all out of the ground. So we'll be reporting on that for the next couple of years. Yeah, that's what we're-
Hypothetically, with another administration coming in shortly, if a rule like this is repealed, the mass DEP guidelines would still follow, and the town would still comply with the state, right?
They could, yeah. Obviously, US EPA will do, you know, this was in conjunction, it started. As far as I know, up with US EPA and then came down.
Yeah,
So I don't see any reason anybody's gonna change it, to be honest with you. This is, you know, this is a critical piece of infrastructure
I agree.
here, and health reasons it should be done. So, I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but either way, I think in 2 years, Needham will be good without the lead in our system. So, staffing update. So, I think last time I was here, I had 4 open positions, now I'm down to 3. I'm happy about that, but I still have 2 craft workers we need for sewer and 1 laborer for water. So we're working actively advertising and interviewing potential applicants for these open roles.
Do you know
So
what percentage is that of everybody?
there's 26 people in my department, including me. So, you know, just up until Monday, we were down 5. So we actually hired 2 folks that started on Monday, the 18th. So we're happy about that. It was 2 laborers.
It's an industry-wide problem, it's not
Yeah,
unique specifically to Needham, and particularly we're finding at the like more skilled level, we're having a harder time. Just because the private sector is so lucrative right now. Something changes with private construction, then will be an attractive place for people to work. So we've been doing things, we have a co-op program that we're trying to recruit some younger people into the industry and get them trained up as well.
I remember when you guys did that, presentation in the town hall a couple of years ago, it was the same thing, in-house training too for.
Yeah.
Skills.
This is good. I think we've had over, like in the past 2 years, we've had, I think, over 25 promotions from within, so
Yeah.
it's working well.
Yeah.
We've got to fill that bottom level back up again to then get people trained.
Some other stuff we've done, over the past year, the in-house staff completed another water main improvement. Last time I was here, we talked about the Elizabeth Circle one. This time we did, one on Tower Ave that was around 320 linear feet of old 1.5-inch steel water main that was rotted and leaking. So we pulled all that out, put in a new 6-inch diameter ductile line water main, new fire hydrant, that wasn't on the street. And we also put a stub pipe out. This is right down by Mitchell School. And that'll allow, hopefully, in the future, when Mitchell School gets redone, that we can loop that water main through and tie it into Brookline Street. And then we'll have a nice loop there instead of a dead end system that's been there for years. So, because anytime you can tie in a water main system and get it to loop, you get better water quality out of it. We completed our leak detection survey with our contractor, New England Water Distribution Services. We found 1 water main leak, 3 water service line leaks, and 6 hydrant leaks, and all those were repaired by the in-house water department staff. So that was taken care of. There's another follow-up, MWRA water tunnel program design work continues. We meet with them when they have updates and progress meetings. They're still doing scheduling and performing both shallow and deep rock borings for the design of the redundant well tunnel. That'll be out on the I-95 interchange right there by Muzzy. And then we'll also get a connection from that tunnel, into our current water pump station off the section 80 water main, up by St. Mary Street, so, that'll be a great backup, because when they need to service the section 80 water main, they have to physically shut it down. And, this will allow us to have water supply from them, if they should shut it down and we need it, especially during summer months.
How old's the existing pump?
That's been there for,
I think it's over.
Yeah, it's-
yeah, well over 40, yeah, well over 40 years, so. The Charles River Water Treatment Facility, they experienced an unexpected submersible water well pump and motor failure in water well 1A during peak season, of course, July and August. We ended up having that water well and motor pump replaced through our on-call mechanical, electrical contractor, CT Pumps and Controls and their subcontractors. So we got a brand new well pump there. We're back up to pumping the gallonage that we needed to pump out of that. It was around $50,000 cost to get that done. So that's what I got for an update.
Did you talk about the drought? Did you talk about drought?
I hadn't talked about that.
You want to talk about drought?
I think you've seen in the news, and also DP's reported that, we're in a drought situation here. As the MWRA will tell us, we have no problems. Because we have MWRA water, they have a 5-year supply, to supply water to all their communities. So we are still pumping a little bit from MWRA, not a lot. Our gallonage, this month, we've been under our, 2.63 million gallons a day. We're pumping around 2.3.
Because of the
Charles
water
River. And the well levels are down, I think roughly 3 or 4 feet. But, we're also pumping a little less too, so. So we're all right for now, we're supposed to get some rain tonight and tomorrow. Not that that's gonna do much for us. I've been hearing people going in panic mode over 1.5 inches. I said, I don't panic until I see 3. So, but yeah, until we can get out of this drought, let's hope for some snow, let's hope for some rain. So, let's not have any outdoor fires.
I just wanted to sort of prep the committee a tiny bit there. It was a regulation change to our registered water where when the town goes into a drought declaration, the town is required to go into a water restriction. We had 2 years to implement and those 2 years expire in April of 2025. We are challenging that in court right now with a whole host of other municipalities. Largely, I guess, on 2 principles. One is that it's a registered water amount. That's our right to withdraw that water. And so that's infringing with, the Commonwealth is infringing on that right. And the second reason is because in Needham, because we have supplemental water from the MWRA, effectively all they're doing is reducing MWRA consumption when we have a water restriction. They're not actually making an impact on the watershed. So if the goal is to preserve the watershed, the restriction does nothing to accomplish that. So there's sort of a logical fallacy there. So those are the 2 reasons we're challenging. It is very likely in talking to the attorneys that the case will not be resolved before April of 2025. And the reason I'm just prefacing that for the purposes of the billing process is that if we were to get into a dry season, just like we did now, Needham would have a complete water ban outside, and that includes hand watering. So when we had a water restriction 7 or 8 years ago, because we were below a threshold that the state required, or above a threshold the state required, that was an odd even ban where you could water your lawn, I think, twice a week. That will not be allowed under this new restriction when we have a drought declaration. It is no watering. The only exceptions, I believe, are for sports turf for safety and for crops and irrigation. So it's gonna be a very different implementation, and I just wanted to prep because historically in years where we have mild drought, not severe drought, but mild drought, that tends to be a year where there's a significant amount of water consumption and therefore a lot of billable water. Versus now, we'll likely be in a situation where we'll have to reduce the water usage over the summer, so you're not gonna see those peaks in the same way. decided not to sort of think about a water restriction at this point, because to be frank, most people, the weather is such that most people have winterized their irrigation systems, they're not watering outdoors, and that is the restriction that DEP is putting on us. There is no restriction for indoor water consumption, but we are putting an advisory out on Thursday, just reminding people to be mindful about their water consumption. Like Mike said, there's no threat to our water system per se, but we are down slightly in our production as a result of the water conditions, but we have the capacity to supplement that with MWRA.
Mike, with the multifamily housing plan that just passed, has there been any assessment on infrastructure upgrades that may need to happen?
We haven't done anything
No, I
Right.
can,
direct one, but,
Do we
we haven't
anticipate
seen
there
any
will
issues.
So-
I don't think-
when it comes to zoning or any sort of development, the town has no control, well, the town has very little control over what ends up getting
Sure,
proposed places. And there's no reason for us to believe that a multifamily housing unit would put more demand on our system than other commercial developments that could be there. So there's no specific infrastructure upgrades that are being proposed. The way the permitting process works, as far as I understand it, is a project would be proposed and we would do an assessment. There's sort of 2 points of vulnerability. One is capacity, like, do we have enough water to bring into the town? And we have more than enough water to bring into the town right now. Because we have the full amount of water that the town requires permitted through MWRA and our own wells on top of that. The second issue is the piping infrastructure, and that would be evaluated based on the project. And if the town, for some reason, there's an issue with the size of the pipe or the condition of the pipe, we can prevent that project from moving forward until either it's in our capital plan to make an improvement, or if they were to make the improvement. We can't require them to make the improvement, but we can hold back their requirements
Sure.
until that happens. And largely, if we were making an improvement in that area, we would, the cost differential between going from a smaller pipe to a slightly larger pipe is not significant enough that it would
Got it.
cause an issue, so.
I guess where that plan doesn't really hold for me is if there's multiple projects on Chestnut Avenue at the same time, you can't really evaluate them one project by project, right?
But the same would be true with the commercial development, like if somebody was building a brewery and somebody was building a hospital and it's no different than any other environment we operate in, it's just housing versus commercial versus other, redevelopment of the community, so it's, even though it feels very different from like the utilization of it from a water and sewer infrastructure, it's the same level of risk we currently have with our current zoning.
To feed off of that, one of the other things is that, like the Muzzy project and some of the other projects we have in town, when they come in and they wanna hook up to the sewer. They're gonna have a volume of flow that's gonna be coming out of that building, so, we require them to take that. Flow with that
Got it.
that inflow and infiltration that's coming from other areas out of the system.
Yeah.
Where that may be leaking, so you basically get a net gain
Got
of,
it.
zero, because, you can take it some out and now
Makes sense.
and now you're adding some.
And the only other thing I'll add is the 50% of our water consumption in the summer is irrigation.
Mm.
So in theory, the areas we're talking about are not gonna have large
Less
irrigation
irrigation.
areas, so you're not gonna have that spike in the summer. So you might have slightly more consistent consumption in the winter, but our system is structured, set up, built for those peak summer months.
Yeah, okay.
Can I go back to you mentioned the irrigation thing. In the event there is a total water ban for the summer, has that happened before in the town?
Not like this, so we had an odd even ban that was implemented under an old water permit that the town gave up. We had to, as part of compliance, come up with a enforcement policy, which I did not love. So I'm hoping we can figure out how to enforce this ban without it being overly onerous on staff. We had staff come in, they would take pictures, they would issue fines, and every single person who challenged us was successful, so I would like something that's a little bit more effective and less staff time intensive as far as a restriction goes. So we've never, as far as I'm aware, ever had a total ban. I don't know when the water treatment plant was coming online, if we had some sort of restrictions in place at that point, because we were sort of bringing 2 plants online, but I don't think we've ever had anything quite this extreme before.
Thank you. Any questions?
Stormwater fees, just as a reminder, the stormwater fee, which are, being, which is, funds that we're raising to fund part of the capital plan associated with stormwater, quality. Very, very important. That's, regulated by the federal government, which basically having to, make sure that the water runoff into lakes and streams are clean. And that is a multi-million-dollar cost annually. The fee was delayed for a couple of reasons. Then it came to COVID time, then it came to changing our billing system, and then it came to the delay in implementing our billing system. So stormwater fees took effect on April 1st, and the first bills have gone out. Don't have any data in terms of collection rates and such. We need more time to pass to see that. One of the things that we recommend to the select board based upon some public inquiry is perhaps to look at over the spring months, whether or not there should be a credit that a homeowner could earn for improvements to contain stormwater runoff that exceed that which is required by the regulations. Many people have been asking about the fee that's charged. Can they get credit for improvements that they have done with capturing stormwater? But that's all required by the building code. And so they're not doing anything more than what they're supposed to do. And this is really talking about the stormwater that runs off of properties and capturing and trying to capture it and prevent it from polluting the waterways in town. Now, the town also set a very low fee. We're one of the lowest of communities that have stormwater fees. So if there is a recommendation to the select board that there's a credit that people could earn. There are two things. They would have to make improvements that exceed that which is required by the building code. And two, they would have to document that they're maintaining those systems. So there's certainly that would have to get documentation from a company that's they're cleaning up their basements and catch systems. But because the fee is so low, if it's implemented, we won't be generating the funds, so basically we'll have to increase the fees. So that's a conversation and some of the scenarios we'll have to look at this spring.
Dave, what type of improvements would be hypothetically eligible for a credit? What are we talking about?
I actually have to defer to others
Okay,
on that, and we'll have better information
Okay.
for you in the spring.
Need permeable surface.
Yeah.
Have to change from impermeable to permeable.
So I think the things we've been looking at are like infiltration systems that are above what is mandated by the stormwater bylaw, rain gardens. Things that would allow people to capture more water on their property, as well as removing impermeable surface. That would change our calculation.
But I mean, who asked for, I mean, the fee's really low. I mean, you're talking about like maybe like $2.20 of a, you spend like $4,000 and you get,
well, that's why I was asking, like, what type of improvements?
Yeah.
We were like talking about expensive improvements, so.
Correct.
yeah, I mean, I have a house out of state and that has a stormwater fee and my impermeable surface is less than what I have here, and my fee is like twice as much. It's like $50, but no, yeah, it's like 48 something. So I mean, it's, you know,
Exactly, and the fact is, that is already in our regulations, that if someone reduces the impermeable surface of the property, that would be potentially reduce them in the tier. But a vast majority of residential properties are in tier 1.
Can you remind me, how does that assessment work? You're using the aerial maps, right?
Yes, we are in Google.
And do you look at it yearly to reassess the percentage of the lot that's impermeable?
We used it as our baseline. It's probably not gonna be yearly.
Okay,
It will
Periodic.
basically, realistically, it's probably gonna be every 3 years or so. But obviously, we'll rely upon that if someone comes in and that's the biggest thing is many people initially thought that we had the fee incorrect. Because they just didn't think they had that amount of impervious surface, and then we showed them and showed the math, and more often than not, the amounts were. And then that's when they inquired, well, what about if we makes improvements to rain barrels and gardens and stuff, will that reduce?
Originally, it wasn't gonna be under our purview, but it is gonna be under the purview of this committee.
That was the recommendation that was made to the select board 2-3 years ago, and they did recommend that. So yes, they've charged that.
So we
additional
want
fee.
purview with that.
Yes, I have a review of recommendations on changing the fees and really the only thing we would be looking at this spring is whether or not there should be a credit program and what such a credit program would look like.
And that type of program would include like enforcement and monitoring, things like that.
Yes, what would be necessary, there would obviously be an application process and a documentation that would be necessary. There are communities which fee is much higher and there's documentation that they have to provide that maintenance was done by, because we won't have the resources to go out and inspect them. They'll have to hire a private contractor to sign off, verify if the work was done. Usually for residential property, it's once, it's what I've noticed in the communities that have it is like every 3 to 5 years.
Well, aside from the credit program discussion, the select board is not looking for us to give any feedback for this next cycle on the actual rate and stuff.
No, because it was agreed that we would hold the fee at a constant for the first 2 years.
First year, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Water and sewer billing activity. And I said, I don't have any data to share with you what the results were, the amount of water sold. You billed much less. For 2 reasons. One, we were having issues with our billing software, which we're still working our way through, as well as it was not as dry a year. Anecdotally, our irrigation revenue is going to be lower, but total revenue was down. Again, we'll have all this data when we start looking at the rates recommendations for FY 26, and that will be done during the spring. But as the director Lustig had mentioned, the regulation associated with irrigation is going to impact domestic water rates. So, and then of course, sort of circling back to the questions about the developments and the impact on the infrastructure. There wasn't really a notable impact that they would have on the infrastructure. We have to, as the superintendent mentioned just in his report, the amount of pipe that we have to replace every year. If there was a larger build out, there would be more customers to share that cost over. So not having the development means that if we will be paying more. And just as a reminder, we still are nowhere near the amount of water that we're issuing since Coca-Cola shut down bottling operations. There's a lot of housing that would have to be developed up to actually push us back up to the amount of water that we used to use when Coca-Cola had the full bottling operations in place. So those were some of the reasons that when the finance committee and select board were asking DPW what's the impact of this for infrastructure on water and sewer operations? Why they were had a high degree of confidence that it wasn't gonna be a major impact. And again, any non-residential development, usually there's mitigation that they have to do by regulation, such as if the former Muzzy site is redeveloped.
So what is going on with the billing software?
The just going back in history, what had happened is the town procured a new billing and collection system. What we have, the legacy system is with basically late eighties, early nineties technology, green screen. Effectively ran on an AS400. The company was not, was informing us that some attributes of the software they weren't going to be supporting any longer. So we went out and procured new billing and collection software, and there were basically two vendors. There were 4 proposals, but there were only 2 vendors that were in the running. And the difference between them was significant. One is fairly well known in the area, Tyler Technologies, in their cost, whereas in the
In Portland?
yeah,
Yeah.
and the corporate headquarters out in Texas now.
Yeah.
And their proposal was in the millions, whereas this company out of Connecticut, which provides billing and collection services to almost all municipalities in the state of Connecticut. They have some activity in Rhode Island
Maine.
and
Yeah.
a few in Maine, but
Yeah.
predominantly they're a Connecticut-based firm, and they were significantly less, and basically less than 100,000 a year in terms of cost. They did not have a water and sewer billing product yet. They were in development. So we were implementing excise billing first and real estate billing second. Our biggest fear was that our old technology was gonna fail, and then we would have no options. And that happened. In September 23, we had the air conditioning cooling system broke down over the weekend. The room overheated. The S400 was fried and wasn't recoverable. So this company, we basically started us with a billing package, which was not ready. In fact, it wasn't even operational. So the first few months, there was nothing there really to start billing. Then, as with any new product, there's the problems that you have with implementation and terminology, functionality of the software is leaves a lot to be desired. And we've been working through the process painstakingly all these months, and as they try to fix problems, other problems develop. The other complication is it's not just one technology company. Today, there is just no one solution. So although we have a billing and collection system, our reading system, the meter reading system is a different application. So they have to interface with their billing system. Then to actually produce the bills, we have to send the data to another company that actually prints and mails and sends out the bills. The payment systems are yet another party that payment processing merchant is a different company that's in process, which is one is Invoice Cloud for folks that want to pay online, and then our payment processing, the old mailing the stuff with the check through a lockbox. That has worked well for us for decades. The company was bought out by another bank. The bank used to be Century Bank, and it was bought by Eastern, and the service was not the same that it was, and everything that we need to do just in terms of, for instance, testing bills, which used to be 48 hours for Century Bank, there's lead times of 5, 6, 7 weeks.
So what was that, testing bills?
To testing, make sure they could read them
Oh, Yeah.
and scan. So it's just something as simple as that. We have since gone out to bid and awarded a new contract for the lockbox operation. Interestingly enough, the bank that was the one that Leader Bank hired all the people that used to work at Century Bank. So we have, we're feeling positive that at least for the lockbox that's gonna be much smoother. Elise is our treasurer collector. She has been taking the brunt of the issues and she has some good news to report and just a status update relative to online payments.
So our back end is called Invoice Cloud, so. Our software has the interface when it kicks you over to this payment process. Called Invoice Cloud, and we had run into some issues with the auto pay. And since then, we've resolved that situation, so it was coming up. With it was linking the wrong group, the data set, so we identified that issue and actually reached out to the company and had them resolve that, and then we've just everything seems within Invoice Cloud, it is operating as expected. So we went through those issues that had come up.
so just from a transparency perspective, I've been very vocal about the whole Invoice Cloud thing, because I've had a lot of issues with it.
Mhm.
And I have 30 years of experience in banking, dealing with integrations. And so my concern has to do with. So there's two things, and I mean, there's a lot that's going on that I don't understand your relationship with the vendor in terms of like. Who's their project team and what are they responsible for versus what you're responsible for? But just from a ongoing. Sort of risk assessment, compliance check, like how do we know that? So, for example, I had my real estate set up to auto pay. It's since September last year worked really well. Too well, in fact, because I double paid it. What happened was, I'm sitting at home thinking, I'm gonna log in and check to see that it's all set up, right? And you know this, right? So I went in, it didn't recognize me. So I went upstairs and I talked to Thomas, right? And he looked it up and he says, oh, your email is not associated with that anymore, right? So I associated the email manually. And then when I was able to log in using my phone, and I came home and I had to reset up my bank payment stuff and all that. And so I was a business finance officer at a bank, right? And what we would do is we'd have to run an audit check on everything to make sure that like existing, like what we expected to be is still there, and just do that whole procedure, like. And I realized that the town's very different, but like, what are you, like, how are you sure that you're sure that things are getting billed correctly? Like people who had auto pay set up, like, obviously people would have called and said, hey, my thing didn't go through. Like, how do you know? Like, do you have trial balances? Do you like, what are you're doing all that kind of stuff to check, to make sure that what you expected to bill is what you billed, and the revenue you came in is what you expected.
So this particular situation wasn't anything that we had done from our side. We were working with the payment processing company, and we had a lot of back and forth. It took them a bit of time to come to this solution, and when we were communicating with the company, they had assured us that it was going to be this way, or we were expecting it to be simplified. The only thing that changed were to be the account number, and then people could re-enroll into their accounts. So from our perspective, we were assured that everything was as it was. So it's not from the town of Needham side that this was an issue, even though we had identified it. So to a certain extent, we do have to, we trust our vendor to do what they say they're going to. And I think that this was a situation where maybe they had not understood the whole ripple effect of that action. That's what I believe it to be.
I mean, is there a large variance between actual collections and what's been budgeted and assumed?
Yeah,
Just clarify, it's not a monetary.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's no change in the, what they say we've, collected versus what we actually have collected. It's just purely from a user perspective, so auto pay, the account access, so that's nothing that has to do with the town, we're not nothing, but that's not something that we control. It's the vendor side.
So when,
Product question, John, we do, in terms of, when the files come in to upload to the actual, to the customer's records here, is the staff actually does the comparison, making sure that, the amount that's being credited matches the bill, and then they investigate if there's an under or over to see if that was actually an intended under or over. That verification happens, with each payment batch that comes in for that documentation. As well as the files that are uploaded, that is approved by the treasurer's office before it actually is sent out. So every time before the bills are produced, we get the sample files and then we compare that, and that should be matching the commitment amount. And it'll show how much is sewer bill, water bill, past due, current bill. And those are the things that the treasurer's office approves beforehand. So that sort of documentation. So it's really been a customer experience problem than it has been a financial control problem.
So it's all anecdote, but I do feel like I still hear a lot of stories from other residents about double bills and higher bills than they expect, and it's hard to know whether that's indicative of a systemic issue or just the catch-up billing that's happening and people not fully understanding the implications.
It's all of them. It's, one was the catch-up billing, but we're now
Yeah.
caught up. Second is, more, they're looking to make the formatting, improve the formatting, because people are misunderstanding, they're reading the bill and they're paying the wrong line, for instance. And some folks, like, they'll see the prior balance. You get to see the next line, payments applied, current balance, and they'll pay the prior balance.
Okay.
So those are some instances we've had. When you think that we have about 9,600 accounts, there is about 80 accounts that there were actual billing problems that we've had to resolve, and part of that problem was because of the failure of the system. The former billing system, this company actually took printed bills and recreated the data for us.
Which is fat fingers.
So fat fingers, misinterpretation of what, something that was a credit, but it was taken as a charge or conversely. So that's why we've had some issues. And of course, the folks that are not having any problems, they're not saying anything, they're not going on social media and everything, but we know that.
Human nature.
Yes, the ones that are having the problem, that they're making sure that they're letting folks know. So,
And we're also including a line on the bill, payments made after, to just clarify for the residents that if they're noticing that the previous balance doesn't match up, it's probably a timing issue. So we just wanted to clarify that for them as well.
Once everything is working smoothly, meaning that we take the readings in and we generate the bills, approve the consumptions and generate the bills. That used to be a 5-day process. The problem is it's mostly a 2-week process, 3-week process. So that also contributes to the problem with.
It's a Eastern thing.
No, this is,
No.
this is,
The new,
this is just, it takes that long to generate the bill, so we have the bill files.
I mix it up, yeah.
Yeah, the bill files, but payments are coming in, but the bill was created on October first, but they're not really ready to go until October 21st. Because we're fixing the communication problems between the billing software and the printer, for instance. So that's one of the problems it's waiting, and it's just too much lead time between when there's a data export and the actual delivery of the bill.
Who does that export? Is that Invoice Cloud or is that the town?
Right now, it's the company, correct?
Mhm.
It's not invoice, they're down. The first place is Neptune, the
Oh.
billing system, then it's QDS. Then goes to Kirkwood, bill printing service, then it goes to Invoice Cloud.
Invoice Cloud does not play a role in the creation of the bills. It only plays a role in if you're paying your bill online. That's the only time Invoice Cloud comes into play.
When, what's the projected time frame when everything is supposed to be sorted out and running smoothly?
I'm not at the point where I could say that.
You know what would be really nice is just a flow chart of all the different components. Just to, you know, even like a hand drawn.
We can do that.
Yeah.
We can do that.
It's interesting stuff. Yeah, I think Eastern, back to Lockhart, I think they outsource this stuff to FIS Global. I think they do.
Which
Yeah.
would also explain why it was taking them so long to do
Yeah.
routine changes such as
Yeah.
testing scan lines. It
Yeah.
just it's never been an issue before, and then all of a sudden it was.
Right. Honestly, I'm a little jealous that can't help out. It's interesting stuff, but
Like a puzzle, some parts.
This happens though, utility. Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, had a major catastrophe. It lasted years. And only recently, the past 2 years resolved. So they're huge utility.
It's happened with Eversource.
Yeah.
Just they changed the billing.
yeah, they just did, yeah.
And we got a bill for one school building that was equal to the total consumption of a year.
Mm.
So, it doesn't just happen to us.
Yeah. True.
So we would be looking, probably starting usually we start the process, for preparing, for the rate structure in April, late April, and then, May for the June hearing. I'm suggesting that we start the process in March, just because we'll be talking about, stormwater as well. So, take a look at our calendars, then, what dates, definitely, won't work for you to meet. We just get it in your calendars.
Will we have a firmer, in terms of the time, that's fine, but will we have a firmer idea by March about potential like full water ban or anything like that? Or is that still something that wouldn't be?
I have to defer to the director.
So for this particular calendar year, I don't see that being
For
necessary.
2025.
For 2025, it really is gonna be dependent on conditions, but I would anticipate that we will have to comply with Mass DEP's regulation, until we hear otherwise.
Okay.
So my preference would be not the last week in March.
I can't, I have to get back to you. I have kids and everything.
Okay, why don't I do this then for you all? I'll send out a set of dates and we'll do a poll. See what works. And I would anticipate probably 5 meetings this year. And I already noted, not the last week of March.
Possible, yeah.
Info.
To adjourn,
Second.
on favor,
Aye.
motion adjourned, or sorry, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.